Brooke was standing in the middle of my kitchen at 11:30 on a Tuesday night, staring at the back of a frozen pizza box, like it had personally let her down. It says 425 degrees, she said. My oven only goes to 400. I was sitting on the counter with my legs hanging over the edge, finishing the last of a ginger ale I didn't actually want, watching her. That's not how ovens work, Brooke. Then explain why mine burns everything. Because you put things in before it preheats. She turned and pointed the box at me. You don't know that. You told me that. Last month, when you made that chicken. She made a noise that was not agreement, but was also not denial, and turned back to the oven. The thing had been running for 6 minutes and the light inside was still doing that half-dim flicker that meant it needed another 2 minutes minimum, which Brooke knew and was choosing to ignore. I had been here since 7. She called me at 6:53 while I was putting on shoes to go to the gym, and said her neighbor had clogged the shared drain again, and her bathroom had an inch of standing water, and she needed someone to sit with her while she figured out what to do. I said I'd be there in 10. I did not go to the gym. I did not think about it once. That was the thing about Brooke. She texted me a photo of a dead plant once, and I knew she needed a call, not a response, and I could tell, within 3 words, whether she meant it. 5 years of that kind of fluency. 5 years of knowing when to show up and when to let her spiral, and when to bring food, and when to just sit quietly within 10 feet of her so she knew she was not alone. I had gotten very good at all of it. The problem was that I had gotten too good at it and trained myself to call it friendship. She slid the pizza onto the rack and closed the oven door. 15 minutes, she said. Or 12, I said. She sets it to 15 and then panics at 12. She sat down across from me at the kitchen island and pulled her knees up to her chest on the bar stool, which was a thing she did when she was cooling down from being stressed. Her hair was in a bun that had mostly given up. She was wearing a sweatshirt from a half marathon she ran 3 years ago in her hometown in Ohio, the one she said she would never do again, and talked about every fall when registration opened back up. Thanks for coming, she said. You said there was water. There's always water. I figured that out around month 2. Month 2 of living here or month 2 of knowing me. She looked at the ceiling like she was calculating. Probably the same month, honestly. She was right. We met when she moved into the building 2 floors above mine. I was in the elevator with a box of books I was returning to a friend, and she got on at the 3rd floor with a lamp that was too tall to stand upright, and a tote bag full of extension cords. She tilted the lamp horizontally and hit me in the shoulder and apologized twice. Before the doors opened again, I said it was fine. She said, "You're saying that, but your face is saying otherwise." I told her my face was wrong. She laughed. By the time we reached the lobby, she had told me her name, her former city, and that she had chosen this building specifically because the listing said the windows faced and she needed afternoon light or she would become, and I am quoting directly, a different and worse person. I held the door open. She said thanks. Then she said, "You live here too, right? What floor?" I told her. She said, "Good. I'll know where to come when I need something." That felt like a joke at the time. It was not a joke. Over 5 years she had come to me for a phone charger, a second opinion on an email, help carrying a bookshelf that was definitely a 2-person job, and approximately 800 other things that ranged from genuinely urgent to transparently manufactured, so she would have a reason to knock. I had done the same. I just told myself I had better reasons. The oven ticked. Brooke reached across the island and stole a piece of the cheese I had been eating from a small plate she had put out when I arrived, because she always put something out when I arrived, even if it was just crackers and whatever cheese she had. Tonight it was a small wedge of Gouda she had gotten at the farmer's market on Saturday and had texted me about when she found it because I had gotten her into aged cheese, the previous winter, as a direct result of a cheese plate. At a bar that neither of us had wanted to go to, and had both loved. "Can I ask you something?" she said. She was still looking at the cheese plate, not at me. "You're going to ask me anyway." "I know, but I'm checking." "Fine, yeah." She looked up. "Why did you not go on a second date with Margot?" I had not been expecting that. Margot was someone I had gone out with about 6 weeks earlier. One dinner, a bar after, she had texted me the next day, and I had waited too long to respond. And then when I did, it was a half answer. And it died in the thread, and I had not thought about it much. I said, "It just didn't go anywhere." She seemed nice. She was. You told me she was funny. She was funny. So what happened? I picked up my ginger ale even though it was empty. Nothing happened. It just felt like a first date. Most first dates feel like first dates. You know what I mean. Brooke was watching me. She had a way of watching me when she thought I was explaining around the actual answer, and she was doing it now. A slight tilt of the head, not quite a frown. Very much a waiting expression. "I don't think I do know what you mean," she said. The oven timer I had set on my phone went off. She slid off the bar stool and checked the pizza. "Not done yet." She added 2 minutes and came back. "You don't have to tell me," she said. "It's fine." She said it the same way she texted it, which was the way that meant the opposite. "It's not that I don't want to tell you," I said. "I just don't know how to say it without it sounding like an excuse. Excuses tell me things too." I put the ginger ale can down. I looked at the cheese plate. I said the true version, which was the version I had been editing out of every previous answer. I drove home, and I kept thinking about how I'd rather be talking to you. Brooke did not say anything right away. The oven hummed. Outside, someone on the street was having a conversation that was either very excited or very angry, and then it faded. "That's not an excuse," she said finally. "It feels like one. It's more like a problem." I looked at her. "Yeah," I said, "I know." She didn't turn it into a joke. That was the part that got me. With Brooke, when something landed close, she had about 15 different ways to redirect it. A quick line. A subject change. A question aimed at something else. She had whole systems for not letting things sit where they fell. But she didn't use any of them. She just looked at me across the kitchen island, with her hand flat on the counter, and let what I said stay where I had put it. The timer went off. She cut the pizza into squares instead of triangles, because she said it was more efficient, and I said that was objectively wrong, and she said I was objectively wrong, and we had been having that argument for 4 years, and neither of us had moved even slightly. We took our plates to the couch. She put on something neither of us ended up watching. For a while, we just ate and didn't talk, but it wasn't the kind of quiet that needed to be filled. It was the other kind. Brooke finished her plate and set it on the coffee table, and pulled the sweatshirt sleeves down over her hands. She did that when she was thinking. "Can I ask the actual version of that?" she said. "Of what?" "Of what you were saying in the kitchen. I thought that was the actual version. You said you kept thinking about me on the way home, but you stopped before the part where that means something." I didn't answer immediately. I was watching the show neither of us was watching, and trying to figure out how to say the next part, in a way that did not blow up the thing I had spent 5 years carefully not blowing up. "It's a pattern," I said finally. "It's not just Margot." Brooke didn't move. "Every time I try to get interested in someone else, she ends up being the wrong person. Not because anything is wrong with her. Just because she's not you. And I have been very successfully ignoring that for a long time, and I did not plan to stop ignoring it tonight." Brooke said, "Oh, yeah. How long has this been a thing you've been ignoring?" "A while." "Define a while." "About 3 years, give or take 6 months." She turned her head and looked at me. 3 years. "I know. And you said nothing." "I said nothing." "Why?" This was the part I had rehearsed in my head about 100 times in the past 3 years, and never actually said out loud to her. Because you're the first person I've had in my life in a long time who I actually trust, who I actually want to talk to, who shows up for the weird stuff and the boring stuff, and doesn't make me feel like I have to justify taking up space. And I convinced myself that was friendship, and I held on to that, because the alternative was saying something, and maybe losing all of it, so I said nothing. She was very still. The credits from whatever we weren't watching scrolled past. Somewhere above us, her upstairs neighbor walked from one room to another, which I knew because the floors in this building were thin, and Brooke had cataloged every neighbor's movement patterns over 2 years. She said that one walked like he was carrying something heavy, even when he wasn't. I believed her. "Write in the comments," I said quietly, because the CTA belonged right here, in this silence. Should I have said something sooner, or was I right to wait until I couldn't hold it anymore? Brooke looked down at her hands. Then she said, "I went to that thing last spring. The rooftop thing Danny had." I remembered. A birthday party for someone she worked with, held on the roof of a building in Midtown. She had invited me, and I had a work thing, and I couldn't make it. She had texted me, once from there, and then again when she left. "I met someone there," she said. "He asked me for my number and I gave it to him, and he texted me that night. I didn't say anything, I wasn't sure what was coming. We went out twice. He was perfectly nice. Smart, good job, the kind of person where nothing was wrong." She pulled one sleeve further down over her hand. "After the second date he texted me and asked if I wanted to do it again. And I sat there looking at the message for 20 minutes, trying to figure out why I wasn't just saying yes. And the thing I kept coming back to was that I had told you about finding a parking spot that day. And you had texted back a voice memo, because you said the situation deserved audio. And I laughed for 5 minutes. And I thought, he's never going to be the person who sends me a voice memo about a parking spot. I didn't say anything for a second. That is a very specific bar. It's a reasonable bar. It's my bar." "Yes," she said. "I know." She looked at me. I didn't text him back. "Brooke, I know. That was 6 months ago. I know that too. You never said anything. You never said anything either." She had a point. We both had a point. Which meant we had been sitting on symmetrical amounts of obvious information for an embarrassingly parallel amount of time. Which was the kind of thing that would have been funny if it hadn't also been 3 years of carefully managed loneliness. "We are so dumb," I said. She covered her face with both hands. Genuinely so dumb. In our defense, there is no defense. 5 years, we were being careful. We were being cowards, thoughtful cowards. She looked at me through her fingers. "I cannot believe you came over here for a drain situation and this is what happened. I cannot believe this is what I was waiting for. A clogged drain. Not even my drain. Not even your drain," I agreed. She dropped her hands. She wasn't laughing anymore, but she was almost laughing, the thing right before it, where her eyes were still bright, and her mouth was somewhere between a smile and something more complicated. "So now what?" she said. "What do you mean?" "I mean now what? You said it. I said it. We're sitting on my couch at midnight with frozen pizza plates, and a show neither of us was watching." I looked at her. I think now I stopped pretending I drove home from every date thinking about traffic. She smiled. Just slightly, and I stopped pretending I gave that guy my number because I was interested. Okay, she said it softly. Then, she didn't say anything else, and neither did I for a minute. And the building settled around us, the way old buildings do. Small sounds everywhere. The pipe in the bathroom, the window with the frame that didn't quite seal. The hum of the refrigerator carrying through the kitchen wall. "Can I tell you something?" I said. "I feel like the bar is on the floor at this point. Go ahead." "The elevator," I said. "The first time. With the lamp." She raised an eyebrow. "What about it? You hit me with it on purpose." She stared at me. "I did not. Brooke, I did not do that on purpose. Your timing was perfect. I was carrying a lamp. You saw me before you got on. I saw you see me. She was quiet for exactly 1 second too long. I may have angled slightly wrong. You absolute menace. I was new to the building. You weaponized a floor lamp. It was barely a tap. It was a shoulder. She was laughing now, fully laughing. The same one from the elevator, that first day that had made me keep talking to her, past the lobby, and out to the street in the cold, because I did not want to stop hearing it. You have been holding that for 5 years, she said. I have been holding that for 5 years. That is so petty. It's extremely petty. I'm proud of it. She shook her head. Then she leaned over and put her head against my shoulder, which she had done before, plenty of times. On this same couch, and in movie theaters, and in the passenger's seat of my car when she was tired and didn't want to admit it. I had always held very still when she did that, the way you do, when something good is happening and you're afraid that moving wrong will end it. This time I didn't hold still. I put my arm around her and she didn't move away. We sat there like that, while the show on the TV moved into something else and the pizza plate stayed on the coffee table. And the oven light in the kitchen clicked off. After a while she said, I did angle the lamp on purpose. I know. You can't prove it. I know that too. She laughed against my shoulder and I felt it more than I heard it. That was when I knew we were going to be okay. Not easy, not perfect, probably awkward in a dozen ways I hadn't thought of yet, but okay, because the foundation was already there, and had been there long enough to trust. The next morning, she knocked on my door at 7:45 with 2 coffees. She'd picked up from the place on the corner that I said was overpriced, and she said was worth it. She was right. But I had never fully admitted it. I opened the door and she held one out and said, I decided I'm willing to discuss the lamp situation further. I took the coffee. There's nothing to discuss. I have the facts. You have a theory. It's a very good theory. She walked past me into the apartment like she had 800 times before, except this time she reached back and took my hand for a second, then let go and kept walking. I stood in the doorway for a moment. Then I closed the door and followed her in. A few weeks later, I was walking back from the coffee place with her when we ran into her coworker, Priya, who had met me twice at office events, and each time had introduced me to other people as Brooke's boyfriend, without asking or pausing. Brooke had always said, actually, he's, and then there was usually a correction. This time Priya said, oh, are you two together now? And Brooke looked at me, just for a second, and said, yeah. Priya said, oh thank God, finally. I was starting to think I was imagining things, and then kept walking. Brooke looked at me with the expression she wore when something came out funnier than expected. Apparently it was obvious to everyone, she said. Apparently, except us. We were busy being careful. She bumped her shoulder into mine. Thoughtful cowards. Your words, our words, she said. And she was right about that too. I had spent 5 years calling her my best friend because it was accurate and safe, and fit inside a box I knew how to manage. None of it was wrong. It just was not the whole thing. The whole thing was this. Coffee at 7:45. Her voice memo about a parking spot. A floor lamp angled at my shoulder. In an elevator 22 years into the building's life on West 73rd. The whole thing had been there from the first day, and we had both known it, and we had both been afraid, and then we weren't anymore.